So is that something that's changed just in the past few years? You're getting people not complete. I guess the big increase has been rent. The vast majority of these people are probably renting. That this is something that's just come up recently or massively increased?
Yeah, it's absolutely evidence to show that there's been higher dropouts in the last couple of years. And we know through the Accord review process that lots of people have been talking about how important it is to address this idea of placement poverty, which is real. So students are struggling with the cost of living, particularly rents, higher rent costs, but higher groceries, higher fuel. And so this is going to help them get through their
Is the argument that these particular jobs entail longer hours of placements, and so it's harder for them to work around it because, you know, just about everyone does unpaid placements, but a lot do a few weeks over a year, and it's easier to work around it. Is that why you just these have been cherry-picked?
The Accord made these recommendations because these placements for teaching and nursing and those other courses are compulsory and they're a part of the degree, and also they often are a number of weeks or months at one time. And we know that students have to move to do these placements to get those spots in different parts of Australia, so the payment's going to help.
The interesting other one is the debt reduction, and from what I understand, it applies across the board. Is that money's precious in this budget? So, you know, money that could go elsewhere is going to go to maybe a trained surgeon or doctor on pretty good money, courtesy of the taxpayer. Could it have been a more targeted approach?
Well, we know that making sure that universities seen as affordable is an important thing, right? And so the HECS system is great because students don't have to pay anything up front. But in recent years, the indexation on those HECS debts has been very high thanks to inflation. And so I think retrospectively applying a new indexation rate to make it lower is a really good thing because we want to make sure that students keep seeing that universities are a really good bet. It's a good bet for them and for the country because we need more students. More than 5 out of 10 new jobs, Tom, are going to require a university degree. So we want students to think it's a good investment and know that it's a good investment and that it's affordable. So I welcome these changes.
The Jobs Ready program the Coalition rolled out. So this was essentially making some degrees cheaper and some more expensive. And part of it was actually saying, hey, we don't need all these people studying in arts degrees. I'm not going to demonise it, for better or for worse. I did that. But get into job shortages we need. Now, the review showed it didn't work. But in another sense, it also didn't turn people off these degrees that many were warning about. So should they just stay? Has it been a benefit in one sense?
Well, first thing is that we know that when you don't pay anything up front, it often has a very negligible effect on choice. There are some students that continue to do arts degrees despite the fact that they went up considerably in price. I think the important thing to remember is Job Ready Graduates was at a point in time and it took significant amount of money out of the university system over the longer period of time. And so that's why universities have been calling for it to be fixed. And we also want it to be affordable. We want the government dictates how much universities can charge for Australian students. And we want to make sure it's fair and that the whole system works for students. So the HECS changes are good. The payment stuff today is great, but we want to work on the Job Ready Graduates reforms.
Final one, a lot of pro-Palestine encampments being set up at Australian universities. What have you made of the approach of the unis? They seem happy to let campers stay outside, or they're going for a non-confrontational approach?
Yeah, Tom, I've been talking to a lot of our members. We know there are incidences of this across a number of campuses, and what's pleasing to me is it remains peaceful, that predominantly these protests are peaceful, but also I want to make sure that students are safe on campus. It doesn't matter what your political belief is or your religion or background, you should be safe on a university campus, and I think universities are working hard to make sure that's happening.
They seem like they're ramping up. I mean, we've had some Jewish students say they don't feel safe. These are ultimately places of education. Do unis need to make sure they get the balance right? I mean, can this go forever, for months?
Well, we've got a legal requirement under our legislation to make sure that we adhere to freedom of speech and academic freedom, as well as ensuring that students adhere to the law. So we've got to balance safety as well as freedom.
Freedom of speech is one thing, but the people sort of camping out, if it took the next level, inside buildings, as we've seen in the US, would that be going a step too far?
Well, we want to make sure that these protests remain peaceful, and they seem to be so far, and that universities are working hard to make sure that everyone involved is working within the procedures and policies that are in place. I don't want to see any student feeling unsafe on campus, and it's good that it's remained peaceful here in Australia so far.
But if they took over buildings, then you're getting to a point where, hang on, we're meant to be getting educated in them, students could say. Would that be a step too far?
Well, that would be a matter for the individual universities, and I'm pretty confident that they've got the procedures in place to deal with that. At this stage, it's great that that hasn't happened.
Luke Sheehy, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.